Are you ready to overcome the complexities and burdens that come with your success? Join the team at Centura Wealth Advisory in the Live Life Liberated podcast. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Live Life Liberated with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. Derek Myron. What's going on?
How's it going, Eric? Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you. Last time I could spend time with Kyle. That was fantastic. Now I've got you and Jonathan Freeman in-house.
Woohoo!
Jonathan,
Hey,
what's
Eric,
going on?
how you doing? Oh, it's not great and having a good time.
Yeah, I'm so excited. What are you guys talking about today?
Well, Derek and I are going to talk about a new program that we've launched and want to share that with other advisors who might be curious about how we got to where we're at. And we'll touch base on it in terms of what we call the Elite Advisor Collaboration Program.
Nice. I mean, this is going to be some good information. So advisors, share it with people in your office. Let's get to that elite status. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, why don't we start with Derek, giving a little bit of his background in terms of how he got to where we're at in terms of the firm, a little bit about our firm history for those that don't know, and kind of the concept and how this, I'll call it, program came to be, because a lot of it came from us putting together our thoughts and how we've learned over the years on how to do this business called advisory and wealth management.
Thanks, Jonathan. Quickly, I've been in the business 24 years, and we have found that what has worked best for us, the fastest way to elevate growth and learning, is through collaboration with the best advisors in the business. Those who want to understand how to serve ultra high net worth folks need a team, both internal and an external team. And so collaborating with the best estate planning attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors is how we have found how to elevate our game and get better at what we do in providing better solutions to clients. And so that's what has been our experience. And so we've continued to promote that in our industry.
Yeah. And obviously, you've been in this industry a lot longer than I have. But when I was first introduced to what is Centura today, I was going through a partnership transaction or a sale. And one of the people that knew you introduced me. And I was fortunate to have gone through your process many years ago, but still benefiting from that advice and transaction, I'll call it, back then. But one of the things that I came away with when we started talking back in 2018 was your desire to build a real enterprise and build a company that was the best in the business and serving clients above and beyond anybody else. So from where I grew up back in my early formation years at Intel Corporation, I learned a lot about continuous improvement and continuing to raise the bar and what that does in terms of competitive advantage and or delivering great product or service. And so when we got to talking and I saw what was happening here, I thought there was a fantastic opportunity to help do that and achieve something special with who we are and what Centura Wealth does today. So this program that we're going to talk about really is the manifestation of a lot of things that we do, but now we're bringing it out and exposing it in a little bit more formal way. So we're excited to talk about it.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us, it's called the EACP. What's that stand for?
Elite Advisor Collaboration Program, EACP.
Yeah. And I often find in speaking with CPAs and estate planning attorneys, if they're often collaborative. If they're not, then they're not the right people to spend time with. But we really want to find people there that are collaborative. On the financial advisory side, they're worried often, as I was as a financial advisor. Are you trying to take my client? Are you trying to recruit me? What is your overall ambition? What's your goals here? Tell me what's really going on. And for us, it's simple. It's find people who are fantastic at what they do, and then be utterly transparent about everything you do. And by doing that, it causes the other side to go uncross their arms and say, okay, well, what do we have? Is there value here? Should we work together on joint cases and both learn? And we have a variety of ways to do that with other advisors.
Yeah. I like to use the phrase iron sharpens iron, coming out of Proverbs. But ultimately, I think if you look around and how we got to where we are as a firm, a lot of that comes from that olive branch of reaching out, with whether it's through a study group. I know you're in several, Derek, or just finding experts within various niches within our business that are always innovating, looking for new ways. And obviously the landscape changes all the time. And if you're not at the forefront, there's so many things that either you miss out on or they're just too technical and you stay away from, because there's a lot of ways to get in trouble, and we don't want bad outcomes for our clients.
Absolutely. And we're talking about serving those clients that have net worths north of $10 million and incomes north of $1 million. And whether that's a business exit or the disposition of a piece of real estate without a 1031, or doesn't matter what the money in motion event is. If there's a lot of money in motion and there's potential taxes around it, there's likely a great opportunity for a financial advisor to potentially help the client really save in tax and capture a lot of those assets. And oftentimes what I've heard from others is, well, we just don't do that, or we've rarely done that. And collaborating with a team of folks that have done that and do that, it can be very helpful. Also, just advisors have different experiences and they have different strengths. And as you spend time with other advisors, I have benefited greatly from spending the time with those people, whether it be my people in a study group or the people that I do joint casework with. I get so much. So I get a lot. I mean, it's a mutual sharing in that.
Well, yeah, we like to call it a win-win-win, right? The client wins. The other advisor learns and sees and learns new ways of practicing the trade. And ultimately, we learn from it too. So that's that win-win trifecta. So, Derek, if we're talking to other advisors out there and we say, well, what does that advisor look like? How would they think of themselves in terms of their characteristics of wanting to, or even thinking about doing this type of thing, since it's unnatural and most advisors are not normally in an open sharing environment?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that most advisors, you get well introduced to somebody and they typically have their arms crossed. And so we start with, well, what is it you want? And we really just want a relationship, a collaborative relationship. But what are some of the characteristics? They're the advisors that would be great at this program. They serve, or they desire to serve, this ultra high net worth client space. They know they need potential help to partners with others, whether it be CPAs, EPAs, or other financial advisors, to serve those folks. They are intellectually curious, right? They're not camping. They busted their butt to get where they are. And they're not saying, hey, listen, I'm here. I'm not looking to really spend a lot of time and effort. I've got a great deal. Well, that's probably not the right person. Look for the person that really is still super engaged and wants to learn and wants to figure out how else to serve these individuals. Because let's face it, legislation changes. Then there's court rulings that follow the legislation that really changes the environment. And you got to stay current on what is happening and what's next and how to best serve.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you didn't mention is they have a desire to grow. There's this growth mentality of either, they want to build their business, they're looking to take it to the next level, and they want to learn from others that have either, learned by mistake, or they just have the experience of knowing and trying and ultimately seeing what works. And so the fastest path to getting to success is not trying to figure it out on your own, but learning from the best. And that ultimately is where that type of firm where we're openly willing to share, whether you call them trade secrets or our best practices, but that's just who we are and how we operate.
So historically, Jonathan, we have done joint casework with lots of advisors across the country. And over this last year, you've put your arms around saying, okay, but we've called them pillars, or you've named them pillars, in gathering all of this IP that we call IP and serving these ultra high net worth families. Why don't you share a little bit about the program and how it's built?
Yeah. So Derek alluded to the pillars, and we think there's 5 of them. Ultimately, that if you put it all together, really delivers the value that this clientele, this ultra high net worth client base needs to be served. So if you think about each
for investment management and planning, the two services that we do, investment or planning and investment management.
Yeah. So if you think about running a business, first part of running that is you got to be able to get new clients to the table. And so put that in the context of marketing and business development. So that's one pillar. Next pillar is, as you already mentioned, financial planning. As a financial planning firm, we always start there, trying to understand the client need and ultimately how we want to take their current situation to their future state of where they're headed. We like to call that the North Star. Third pillar is investments. So generally, whether that's liquid or illiquid investments, ultimately, we know that this type of a client needs, I'll call it, top shelf solutions to ultimately both get to their financial goals, but then maintain their lifestyle when they've achieved that. So that's the investment pillar. The fourth pillar is insurance solutions. And this is really how to use a tax efficient vehicle to deliver estate solutions that come part of a financial plan or a package. And ultimately, given the tax efficiency of insurance, that becomes a very viable pillar for an advisor to use when the situation calls for it. And then finally, again, from running a business, we use the term practice management. But how do you both run the team, your team? How do you run and grow people? Not run people, but how do you find and grow people? How do you run systems and processes to be able to do things efficiently? So those are all things that we put into this bucket of practice management. And ultimately, we're always out trying to find new ways to be more efficient, use technology to deliver better service. And so those are some of the things that we're openly willing and able to share when you come in and kind of sample, I'll call it, some of these pillars. So a little bit about the program. Typically, when we're introduced to an advisor who's curious about learning more, we'll walk them through a brief introduction of generally here's the program and the different elements of what the pillars entail. And then from there, we usually will work on a meeting to go through something that they can present to us. And then at the same time, we present them with some of these best practices and learnings that we've built up over the years. So it's a very collaborative type of environment. And ultimately, by doing that, we know that if we expose our thoughts and our solutions, that it engenders trust. And that trust then allows us to work in situations which hopefully, from their perspective, they have areas where they either have a prospect, maybe it's a client that has needs that we can jointly work on and serve.
Yeah. So just back to those pillars, this advisor chooses one or two pillars that interest them the most. And then they also choose an area where they think they can teach us the most. And it's really at the end of that period that, hey, it makes sense to go further and explore further, or it doesn't. And you just described two ways we could partner on, either a client of theirs or a prospect of theirs, or they can just witness and play as a participant and watch us take a prospect all the way through the process. Any one of the three is acceptable, and it's a way to start building trust and seeing the systems of how we prosecute a case here.
Yeah, exactly. I know one advisor that we worked with recently had someone who's been a friend, someone that falls into that category of ultra high net worth client, but he felt awkward trying to approach that person he had already engendered trust because he didn't have the right tools and he didn't have a team that could help navigate a very complex situation. So he introduced us and we worked side by side through our financial planning process and ultimately achieved a great outcome for that client. And he then learned exactly how we go about addressing that kind of situation.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes as we have these conversations, really advisors bring up situations of things that happened in the past. I spoke to somebody here just yesterday who had mentioned that he was cultivating business owners that were going to have a big exit, and he was spending the time with them. And then when they did have the exit, they left to some super RIA, and he lost a couple of them. He's like, I thought I was I was planting these seedlings to grow up to be these big outcomes, and they were leaving him, and he's like, gosh, how do I capture that? And so we think we have solutions around that. I have another advisor that he's been in my study group for several years, and he's got somebody that thinks he's going to have an exit for a very large exit, 500 million, maybe even $1 billion. And wow. I have no idea. What do I do? How do I engage? How do I provide value? How do I lead this client? How do I build the whole overall professional team and putting this all together? How do I achieve the quarterback status to help lead this through? And after you've done several exits, 20, 30, 40 exits, you get really good at it. And, helping other advisors to get good at that and giving them the confidence about that is helpful.
Yeah. I think any other advisor in that situation would knowing their limitations would just say, well, don't even want to pursue that because I'm not the right person. But again, working on it jointly with another firm that has been through it, has had the reps of knowing the pitfalls and what things to do and not do, ultimately gives them the confidence where they can then try and approach that and make it a learning.
Absolutely. Because, the advisor, they're also friends with these people, right? They don't want to do any harm. And they also realize they're just way over their head. But gosh, if they can lean on somebody in their network. And so I just think advisors just don't coordinate enough with each other, because there's a wealth of information, but we kind of hold it to ourselves. And if we just shared it with each other, I think we would all do better, and our clients would do better as well.
Yeah, totally agree. So in terms of the program, and if they want to inquire, I can kind of give some resources out there for those that are listening. One of those is, again, helps kind of illustrate how it is that we like to share, is a website that we've built. It's what we call the Advisor Learning Center. And for those that are curious and want to go check it out, you can. It's learn.centurawealth.com. And so there's a variety of modules and videos and training that self-paced people can go through. And if that generates enough, I'll call it intellectual curiosity, certainly reaching out to either one of us is an option, and we can provide that contact information today. But also you can reach out just through our main website at centurawealth.com.
So if this is you, if you find yourself hearing this and saying, gosh, I'm not in a study group, I don't have people that I share with, or I've got some of these kind of client cases that I feel like I just don't have the capabilities currently in-house, and you want to have a conversation, reach out. We're here to have a conversation. Love to chat with you. And so get in touch with us through our website at centurawealth.com.
Yeah. Well, Eric, how would you take that program from your perspective?
Here's the thing. For the listener, if you are hearing this podcast for the very first time, go back and take a look at any of the library that these guys have built up, and you're going to understand where their heart is, where their brains are at. So much great information that they've shared over the years. You really are looking at a team that is well-rounded and does the work and does good work. So that's number one. Number two, if somebody shared this with you, if you're an advisor, somebody shared this with you, there's a reason they shared it with you. They either know them, they know Centura, they know their reputation, they've seen the work they've done. Take it seriously. If somebody took the time to share this podcast with you, there's a reason why, and they're probably saying, hey, these would be good folks for you to team up with, or to talk to, or to get more education from, because this is what they do. So guys, that's my take on this. I've been with you through this entire process, through this entire journey. I've learned a ton. I was talking to Kyle on the last podcast. He had a great guest on. He had Chuck on. And one of the things that I mentioned was that you guys pay attention to so many different moving parts that business owners don't have the time to do. Legacy families don't have the time to pay attention to all these different rule changes and things that happen. And this is what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. And now on top of that, you're providing education and partnership for advisors that want to do better, quite honestly. So I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I love coaching, I love teaching, and this is what you guys are doing in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's give them the contact information one more time for folks that need to reach out or just want to start a conversation or just curious.
Yeah, so the website is www.centurawealth.com. my name, Jonathan Freeman. I'm the program owner. It's Freeman at CenturaWealth.com. And Derek?
And it's D. Myron at CenturaWealth.com. So thank you very much for listening. Eric, as always, great to be with you. And until the next time, be well.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And of course, our last thank you always goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when the team comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually does help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Centura Wealth Advisory, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Centura Wealth Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Centura Wealth Advisory. Centura is an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in San Diego, California. Centura and its representatives are in compliance with the current registration and notice filing requirements imposed on SEC registered investment advisors, in which Centura maintains clients. Centura may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Tax relief varies based on client circumstances, and all clients do not achieve the same results.